Fancy seeing you there. Hello. Welcome, guys. First of all, thank you. There was a lot of positive feedback on the first episode. And I think I managed to get out of a corner of my room and said, okay, this is not too frightening putting ourselves out on YouTube like that. So today, well, it's a busy day. We've got some work we need to do. We need to hit the gym. But I think a lot of messages that I got from folks were like, okay, so what are you doing differently? What are you doing this time when it comes to fat loss? I think we'll use a bit of that time to address that question, just see how we're approaching it. Just want to make sure I don't run over anyone. First things first, we need to get a coffee because I can't focus without coffee.
I just wanna have some fun, yeah. I don't wanna fall.
So I guess it's mostly stuff that they make with local materials, so it's pretty neat. Let's check this. So like the attention to detail is very specific in a lot of these art items. The positive was also supportive. A lot of people were genuinely concerned as to how much weight I put on.
We fucked up.
The uphill task was, obviously it's a lot of weight to lose in a short amount of time, but then again, it's something we already did. I mean, I've gone through transformations before. It's not like it's something that's foreign to me. I know what I have to do. So, looking at my past, I have done it before, and to be honest, it's another challenge I'm up for. It's simple as that. It's time to grind.
I don't wanna fall in love. I just
Do I sound like Top G? Haram! One of the questions I've been getting is what's my approach to fat loss this time around? And to be honest, for the most part, fat loss is simply doing more, eating less, right? It's on the surface, it's a simple game of calories in versus calories out. Now, the road to get there are very many different roads. You can do OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. You can do paleo, keto, if it fits your macros. You have to pick what works for you. So that's the first step to approaching it. Either way, you're gonna have to restrict yourself when it comes to calories. You're gonna have to eat less and you're gonna have to move more. But 80% of your time is going to be spent on nutrition, which is the key fundamental principles for losing weight. Now, according to me, the best way to approach this is flexible dieting, which is if it fits your macros. I'm a guy that likes chocolates, I like doughy food. We didn't exactly get this size eating the healthiest foods, but that's my preference. So if I can fit it in within my calorie consumption, mentally, psychologically, it does help me a lot and goes a long way and can sustain my approach to this. Because yes, I know we have to look at the goals I've set for 2023, which is losing 20 kilos. And by the way, I think we're about 3 kilos down right now. So I believe we touched 111, 13. I'll just upload it here. But essentially, longevity is the name of the game because I've got a lot of weight to lose. So if I want to get extremely shredded, this is a long-term game. And so what will help me be committed to this approach is if I can have some sort of semblance of hope when it comes to Reese's Pieces, or if I want to have a Snicker bar, I just need to fit it within my flexibility, within my calorie restriction. And so that's why for me, the step one is if it fits your macros, that's my approach for maximum fat loss, going that way. Step two. Step two is now you need to figure out what your maintenance calories are. So ignore the handwriting. From family of doctors, maybe that's why. But step two is figuring out. Step two is figuring out your maintenance calories, right? Now, the reason that's important is because it tells you where your starting point is. So for me, I was eating this much. I'm just living about my normal life, I'm in a sales job, so I don't move around much. It's usually driving from place to place, sitting in a meeting. I was eating 2,500 calories, and that's what my weight was maintained at. So I figured out my starting point, and now I know where to go from there. So if I wanted to gain weight and build muscle, I'll traditionally just increase calories from this point and redistribute it between the fats and carbs. and possibly protein. And then what we do is, for a fat loss perspective, I will now reduce it from there and then take it off from the fat and carbs. So that's the starting point, figuring out where you are. You can use an online calculator. What I'll do is I'll link some up in the description, or you can use a professional to help you and keep you accountable. That's what I've done. What I realized is, before, I'll track everything myself, I'll do everything myself, and it became so cumbersome and I wasn't accountable to anyone. And so Lee's now helping me. I'll link his Instagram page here, figuring out what my calories are and essentially guiding me through that process. And I'm now accountable to him to figure that out. So if we look at it closely, I'm at about 112 kilos. So, by the way, we actually lost another kilo. Today is June 24th. We're about 111.3. So this is what we started with before. I'm at about 5'10" on a cold day, 5'11" on a warm day.
See, now that's some bullshit.
And these are where my starting points were, right? So from there, what we've essentially done is now drop the fat and carbs much lower to create a bigger deficit to initiate fat loss. So that's step 2, maintenance. Step 3, forget cardio, focus on weights. The reason I'm saying that is cardio is such a precious tool to create deficit that I don't want to use it this early on. Precisely because my body adapts to any stimulus, and that's the same for everyone else out there. You have to remember, all these tools, from your nutrition to weight training to steps, are all tools to enhance fat loss. And the way we need to approach it is cinch by cinch, all right? If we go yard by yard, it gets hard, simple as that. So what I mean by that is, let's take my situation right now. I'm training 4 times a week. I'm doing an upper, lower split, which we'll focus on later. And I'm doing about 8,000 steps a day. I'm not touching any cardio. And currently I'm losing weight. I went from 113 to 112 to 111. So it's working so far. So why do I need to throw more things at the fat loss when currently whatever I'm doing is creating that stimulus necessary to elicit fat loss? Eventually I'll get to a place where my body will adapt to this stimulus, right? And I will stop losing weight and I'll plateau. Now I have an option, and I have to ask myself, do I want to eat less or do I want to move more? And I mean, looking at me, it's obvious that I like eating a lot. So I want to keep my calories high through my consumption. So I'm going to try and elicit a burn from doing an additional weight training session. So now we'll take it to 5 days a week. Eventually the fat loss will then increase and it will stop again. Then I have an option, do I want to eat less or do more? Again, I want to do more. Then I take it up to 6 days a week, right? But now I need a day to rest in between. So that's my limit, that's the threshold now for weight training itself. So what's the next tool I can use? Cardio? Yes, but we will now focus on cardio last. Let's use N.E.A.T. Step 4. Segueing into N.E.A.T. N.E.A.T stands for Non-Exercise Activity Thermogenesis. What that means is, outside of the gym, what are you doing, right? How active are you? Do you live a very sedentary life where you're sitting at your desk mostly? Those are all components that play into fat loss. An example would be a person who sits at a desk all day has a very different calorie consumption and calorie burn compared to a construction worker who's more active. So what can you do in your current lifestyle to improve your N.E.A.T? And a simple thing I would suggest to do is invest in an activity tracker, which I have. I have an Apple Watch, and target a step count. So in addition to the 4 times a week I'm training, I'm now bolstering up my step count. If you're saying you're not losing weight and you're only moving 1 to 2,000 steps a day, well, guess what? Maybe if you change it to 8,000 steps a day like I did, the weight will come off. Now when you plateau and you reach a point where you're training, weight training, resistance training 6 times a week, you're doing 15 to 20,000 steps a day, there's only a limited amount of time now before you hit a plateau. So from that, you have to ask yourself, do I want to eat less or do I want to do more? And then it always goes back to that. I want to do more instead of eating less. And that's when I now throw in a cardio session. So step 5. Now is when we get to introduce cardio, once we've maximized all other facets of this weight loss journey. So when we're training as much as we can at the gym with resistance training, when we've reached a step count that's quite high and manageable and it takes up a lot of time, and now we hit another plateau, that's when we introduce cardio. Now I have a decision to make. So do I go LISS, which is low intensity steady state cardio, or do I go HIIT, which is high intensity interval training? For me personally, what I'm doing right now is once eventually we get to a point where I need to add cardio, we would add in a list session where I would take a treadmill, for example, put it on max incline and walk at a manageable pace where I'm able to have a conversation but I'm slightly out of breath. And I'll do it for a prolonged period to create maybe a 300 to 500 calorie deficit. When I stop losing weight and I hit another plateau, I add another cardio session, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. And hopefully by the time we get to where we're training the maximum amount of days we can when we've increased our NEAT and we're doing the maximum amount of cardio sessions and we plateau, then we have an option now to reduce our calories. So you see, we're sort of throwing stuff at it, but in a manageable way. We don't want to just get rid of everything on day one. Our body adapts and now we have nowhere else to go. And that's why people rebound. And that's what I did for a very long time. So this time I'm going to measure it, I'm going to manage it, I'm going to be a bit more cautious with what I use to enhance that fat loss and take it in a very, very slow but assured way. And that's step 5. Step 6, steroids. No, go back and do it.
What's up?
What's up, G?
What's up, Mr. Hollywood?
How we doing? No, but ask them, who was your first member in this gym?
You are.
I was the first member.
What's your channel called? Search around here.